You know what's really funny is that my 35-year-old self would be really disgusted that we're having this conversation. My 35-year-old self was like, walking?
Mm.
Walking? Why would I walk when I could run? My 35-year-old self was like, the only thing you need to do in a workout is push yourself so hard that you're out of breath and you gave it your all, and that's how you knew you did a good workout. My 45-year-old self said, you know what? I'm injuring myself a lot. And my 55-year-old self is no longer interested in doing anything but walking and hiking. So can you tell me what happened to me in the last 20 years, Brad?
You got wise, and the knowledge and experience is, our greatest assets. I mean, there's a lot of aspects of aging that are no fun, but I love to think that life experience and that wisdom and perspective is the one thing that is shining, and I really lean on that myself. Now you're talking to a guest that just turned 60 last week,
Wow,
and
congrats.
I feel great, and I just competed in my first track meet in the 60-year-old plus division
Oh,
and
wow.
kicked some butt. So like I'm smiling, and it's all just, it's all just a daily commitment to neutralize this accelerated aging that unfortunately we have come to believe is the norm today. And it
Yep.
doesn't have to be the norm if
Yep.
we can, take some measures. And like you described, as the decades go on, I should say, like, I just had a big party and I made this big poster, and the title of my poster was 60 is the new 60. And
That's
what I
good.
mean by that is all this lip service and this blather. 60's the new 30. Ha ha ha. I feel great. Toast. Thanks for coming to my party. It's more like, look, we got to wake up and realize that chronological aging is something that we need
Yeah.
to respect and need to adjust and recalibrate. And that's exactly what you're describing is you can get away with things in your younger years. And I think as we'll get into with the topic in Born to Walk and talking about the running boom and the fascination with marathoning and ultra running these days, this
Mhm.
is a young person's game largely.
Mhm.
And something that you want to do as a bucket list item in your 20s is not appropriate for older age groups.
Mm.
We're talking with your wonderful audio engineer and podcaster, Brock Armstrong, our old friend. And I want to talk about Brock's neighbor up there in Victoria, British Columbia, Simon Whitfield, one of the greatest triathletes of all time. He was the gold medalist in the 2000 Sydney Olympics and silver in 2008, had a great career on the pro circuit. And then I was interviewing him by the waterfront there in Victoria. And I was saying, Simon, now that you're retired, he was long gone from the circuit a few years. I said, describe your current fitness regimen now that you're not traveling the globe and kicking butt in triathlon competition. And he goes, Brad, today I'm coached by my 80-year-old self.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was the best one-liner I've heard.
I love
And
that.
where there's a video on YouTube of that title, Coached by Your 80-Year-Old Self, Simon Whitfield. And of course, what he's describing is, looking down and either shaking, the 80-year-old self shaking your head, going, what the heck are you doing, Mindy? You're going to be sorry when you're 45, 55, and not to mention 80. So if we
Yep.
want to honor our 80-year-old self, then we have a whole different set of decision-making parameters as opposed to when we show up at the CrossFit box for the fourth time that week and people are cheering your name, Mindy, Mindy, you can do another rep, you can do another set. And of course you can, but you're borrowing from the bank. Dr. Tommy Wood, one of the leaders in ancestral health, he says you're liquidating your assets when you push yourself too hard and immerse into a pattern of chronically overly stressful training patterns.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's really what I discovered in my 40s. And I hit a crossroads mid 40s where I was like, you have a choice here. You can keep running, which I love to do, and injuring yourself and then having to recover and then run again and then injure yourself and then have to recover and then maybe at some point replace a hip or a knee, which have become really popular. Or you can get out now before all the joints start to wear down. And so I started walking. And do you know that the first time I started walking, I was so, again, disgusted with myself. I'm like, this isn't working out. This is what I do with friends, or this is what I do with the dog, but this isn't a workout. And then something clicked in my mind, and I was like, could I just call this a forward movement workout? I'm doing a forward movement workout. It's just a little bit at a slower pace. So can you tell me, that was about 45. What happens? What is that moment in which we shouldn't be running? Maybe we should be walking. Maybe we should be hiking. How do we know when that critical moment happens, and what do we need to look out for?
Yeah, great question. I mean, certainly you can reference your age there, but really what it comes down to, and getting permission to run, comes down to the fat max heart rate. And this is an important calculation of the metabolic effect of the workout as evidenced by your training heart rate. And we have good information where this is Dr. Phil Maffetone, one of the leaders in endurance training, pioneer in heart rate training. The fat max heart rate is the point at which you're burning the maximum number of fat calories per minute during exercise with a minimal amount of anaerobic stimulation and stress hormone production. So it's a comfortably paced workout where you're burning the most fat per minute. Now, if you sped up from that speed, whatever it was, of course, you're going to burn more calories as you go faster. When you're sprinting, you're burning more calories than when you're walking, but your fat burning would drop in favor of a pronounced spike in glucose burning and in respiration and in stress hormone production. So when you drift out of the fat burning zone, the workout becomes more stressful, and it is prioritizing glucose burning rather than emphasizing fat burning and teaching you to be a good fat burner around the clock. So if you can test this heart rate out, and the calculation is 180 minus your age in beats per minute. So you're going to be having a lower number as you age. I just turned 60, so my training fat max heart rate for a sustained endurance training session is 120. It used to be 155 when I was 25 years old, and guess what? I was going faster because I was in better shape competing as a pro triathlete. But it's all relative. So whatever your pace is at that fat max heart rate, that is an appropriate training pace. It is most likely for almost everyone listening, or 99.9% of people listening, it's probably a medium to brisk walk, maybe a moderate walk if you're unfit or overweight. And if you're an extremely competent endurance athlete, it might even be a slow jog. So I'm here talking about, Mark Sisson and I wrote this book, and we're old-time crazy freak endurance athletes that used to train all day and compete in the Ironman and marathon running and all these things. But we were young guys, very fit. And so an appropriate fat burning workout might have been 7-minute pace per mile or 6:30 or 6:15, but we're talking and chatting about the movie we saw last night, and it's metabolically comfortable. That's the whole essence of it right there. And by the way, it's for the whole duration of your workout. So maybe someone who's decently fit can start out and they can jog a couple miles and their heart rate is at 143, but their number's 145, and that's fine. But if you intend to go out for an hour or a 6-mile route or whatever it is, you have to make sure that you remain under fat max for the entire session in order to get the desired training effect. And that means essentially you're going to be slowing down toward the end of all your workouts because of cardiac drift. The heart rate gets higher as you get fatigued. And so we have all these notions from fitness culture like, well, I'm going to use my GPS watch and I'm going to try to do 9-minute pace for my run of 6 miles and keep it at 9-minute pace and not slow down toward the end so I can get tough and get ready for the race. And that's complete nonsense from how the body needs to be trained in order to be protected from the breakdown, burnout, illness, and injury, as you described, that you experience when you keep going too far over that edge. You incur inflammation and micro trauma. They don't heal. You go out and run again, and pretty soon you have shin splint, stress fracture, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, all these signs that something is wrong.
Check
box.
Check.
Well, here's my favorite one, Mindy. A stress fracture, for listeners who don't know, is a repeated micro trauma to the same area of the body to the point where finally a small fissure occurs in the bone. The bone cracks under pressure because the connective tissue is so traumatized it can't absorb impact. And so, in other words, you've had a huge run-up of extreme warning signs before you get a stress fracture. So I feel like if you get diagnosed with a stress fracture, you should write with a big black marker on your forehead, L for loser or dunce or whatever we want to say. And I can say that because I had a stress fracture in college. And I remember I lived a quarter mile from the running track at UC Santa Barbara in the dorms. And on the day that my career ended, my final workout with the team, I limped over to the track because it was too painful to jog the quarter mile. And I showed up to practice and I told the coach, yeah, my left shin is really, really burning up today. And he said, okay, well, just do some strides on the grass and see if it will warm up and feel better, and then jump in when you feel like it. That was his advice.
God.
So I ran myself right into the ground and into the bone scan in the imaging office, and then a stress fracture is a sustained period where you have to do nothing, no weight bearing, and this is just it's commonplace in the running community, you know.
So what I want to highlight in what you just said that is really important, because I'm always looking at my guests through the lens of like any woman over 35, is that I would say if I could pull 1,000 women, 999 of them are going to tell you that they're working out to lose weight, that they want to work out so they can look good. And I just don't want what you said to be lost on our listeners, which is what you are saying is actually working out at a lowered intensity where your heart rate is up, but you're not pounding your joints, is burning more fat. I want to know if that's true, because that will motivate people. It's like, oh, wait, are you saying less is more in this moment?
Indeed. And I think what's really cool to see now is this calories in, calories out model of thinking is finally getting, destroyed and exposed for what it is, which is an extreme oversimplification of what might be true on a biochemical level. But what happens when you train in a manner that's chronically overly stressful and you have a chronic overproduction of cortisol is you send the genetic signals for fat storage, for adding fat or holding on to fat, rather than fat reduction. And fat reduction is a question of hormone optimization, where you teach your body to become good at burning fat around the clock. And then you stimulate with the appropriate workout where you get excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, and you're able to, gracefully and permanently change your physique and be able to sustain it even when you go on the cruise for a week or you get ill for 3 weeks and you don't work out. So it's not about the calories burned at the workout, because what's happening when you burn a lot of calories at the workout and it was a little too difficult is you send the signals for appetite dysregulation and increased caloric intake. And this is a genetically programmed survival instinct for when you get depleted. The brain does not like to get depleted of energy. It's perceived as a life or death threat, which it was back in the times when we had to continue foraging for food even when we got low blood sugar. And so you will inhale extra food, and it might not be a direct association where, that 6 a.m. spinning class, you come out, you feel good, you're full of euphoric endorphins, you go through a busy day at work, and then what happens later that night is instead of one scoop of Ben & Jerry's, you inhale the entire pint.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's really well said. So basically, if you are increasing your intensity and your output, the other thing that's going to increase is your appetite and desire for food. And your cortisol, which is also not great for menopausal women, that tanks all the other sex hormones.